Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how I've built a pond. Now I've never done this before, this is completely new to me and I've pretty much winged everything, but I'm going to show you step by step exactly what I've done to create this pond. So I figured first, let's just dig a hole. This was harder than it looks, or maybe it does look hard, but yeah, it took about a day to dig this hole. Now we did actually buy a pond liner. In hindsight, I kind of wish I hadn't now. I think it would have been just as easy to go in with like the material liner, because having a liner meant that I had to stick to a sort of certain shape with certain depths and certain shelf levels and things like that. So that in effect made it a little bit harder, but we managed to get by, and as you can see we kind of shaped it off as best we could to kind of imitate where the sort of indents of the ledges, should I say, would be in the pond. So as you can see there's like 3 different levels to the pond, so that was probably the fiddliest bit. But once we've got that done, we decided to edge it off, so we just bought some kind of cheap, they were about £10 each, just little sort of stake fences, and we just sort of created a parameter of where we wanted that to sit around the edge of the pond. Again, we kind of didn't have any direction with this, but we thought that we'd build sort of like a stepping stone path up to the pond. Now obviously the plant pots and the bird bath and whatnot needed to be moved, but we were just kind of edging it out just to get an idea. And as usual, if you've seen any of my previous build videos that take place in the garden, the bunnies were along for the ride and yeah, decided to just chew things and be naughty as always. They didn't help us dig a hole. I thought they would be good little helpers, but no, they weren't. So the next part was basically scalping the lawn. This was harder than actually digging a hole. My back was ruined, my arms were ruined, it was quite painful, but we did this just to kind of stop the grass or any weeds and things growing up. We are going to put a membrane down, and we did put a membrane down. I haven't used them in the past and know that they're not all that effective sometimes, so we just wanted to get rid as much as we could. And it also just meant that we had sort of like a flat ground to work with. And again, we moved everything in the garden and we filled in the little places that you can see with the slabs. We filled that in with a piece of turf. So now I was just laying down the membrane, just sort of fitting it in, making sure that it hit all the corners, and then just cutting it to the right size. And I did a double layer of this just to give that extra level of, I don't know, protection, but time will tell as to whether or not it actually works. And it was just a case of weighing it down with stones because the wind was blowing it, and we kind of let it overhang into the actual pond level as well. And this is little Otis throwing himself on the ground. I have no idea why he was doing that. I've never seen him do it before, but I guess he just wanted to roll in the mud. He's still got his winter coat, as you can see. He's got like a short back and side, so I don't know if he was just feeling a bit itchy or something. Anyway, after playing with Otis for a bit, next up was putting in play sand in the bottom. So this was for 2 reasons. One, it was just to kind of level it off, and it meant that we could mould it easier. Obviously the soil was quite hard, especially because in the UK it's been quite hot, so the ground was a bit of a nightmare to work with. So putting sand in just meant that it was easier to mould the pond liner around the ground. And secondly, it just meant that if there was anything sort of sharp, like sharp rocks or anything, it'd just prevent it from piercing the actual liner and causing leaks. So again, this was quite fiddly because I'd managed to get the liner to kind of sit flush on the grass, even though our grass is quite uneven, but it was sitting quite flush to the edge. And then when I put sand in, it wasn't. So I kind of had to play around with it and take some out and just keep putting my hands down the side just to make sure that it was kind of filling in the gaps. And yeah, so as you can see when you lift it out, it's like an inverted sand castle, but not sand castle. Again, that took some time. We tried getting a levelling tool out to see if that would help us, but it didn't. We did kind of overcut the size of the pond, so I had this little gap down the edge which I just filled with soil and sand, and you'll see what I did with that in a bit. But yeah, now it was just a case of washing off the gravel, which I ended up just not doing in the end because this was about 20 bags of gravel. Obviously just one in the pond, but around the edges of the pond it really did take more than we anticipated, so I just gave up on washing the majority of it in the end. But this is just some pea gravel in the bottom, just to make it look more natural. And at this point we decided to fill it up just to see how it was sitting, because this was kind of the moment of truth. But everything was well. It was obviously just a little bit cloudy, but that wasn't too much of an issue. It's not a huge volume of water, so it can easily be water changed if need be. And we are going to add a solar pump at some point as well. So next up, we sort of plotted where we wanted to put the plants. So I just went to the garden centre, and again, I have no idea really about plants, but I just figured if I cut a hole in the membrane and pop them in, that they might grow around the edge. There's some cordylines and just some sort of natural grass type reedy plants. I'm hoping that they're going to do well. So we picked some green ones and some red ones, and as you can see there was some different types of grasses as well. We also went and found, or bought, should I say, some big rocks to go around the edge of the pond. So these were, if you're in the UK, they were just from B&M, I think it was, called Cotswold stones, and they were absolutely perfect. They were about £4 a stone. And so we just grabbed like the biggest ones that we could just to edge around the pond, just again to make it look more natural and just to create this kind of nice border that separated the pond from the plants and the gravel. So it was just a case of just playing around and seeing what worked best. I knew I wanted one side to be sort of higher and more rocky than the other, and then it to sort of gradually slope down to smaller rocks around the front. So yeah, that's just what I was working with. This is a very, very clayey, kind of powdery stone, so a lot of it did run off into the pond. So the pond has been murky for quite a while, but there's no livestock in there or anything like that, so it's not really too much of an issue right now. Right now was just a case of getting the pond looking nice and natural. So this front part that I mentioned, which I overdug and said that I filled with soil and leftover soil and sand, I added some compost into it, and I decided to plant some Acorus gramineus, at least I think that's what it's called. I think they naturally are like a marsh plant or a bog plant, or they can withstand sort of waterlogged areas. So given that it does rain a lot in England normally, the overflow would kind of come out of the pond and into this section. So I thought I'd make like a little boggy area and just plant these plants in. I have no idea if this will work. I am just winging it and making it up as I go along, but it looked nice and it looked natural. And I have grown these before in the mini pond and they're doing okay, so hopefully they will do well here. So then it was just a case of going around, cutting holes through the membrane, and then popping in the plants. Again, having to dig a hole into the ground underneath was harder than I thought it was going to be. At this point, we'd had sort of 35, 36 degree weather, which in the UK is like unheard of. So the ground was really hard, but I managed to cut some holes, and I just thought I would help sort of boost the nutrient availability by popping in some Miracle Grow just at the base of the plants. This is like it looks like Japanese bloodgrass, but I'm not actually sure what it is. But I thought it was a really, really nice plant to have around the pond. So that's kind of almost the centerpiece, just kind of sits on the back middle of the pond or just slightly off center. And again, we've got the red and green cordylines around the edges and another green plant, which I'm not sure what it's called, but I just thought it looked really nice. So once all this was in place, it was time to then add the other bags of gravel. which, as I say, I think we used about 20 bags altogether, if not more, and we just used a variety. So there's like golden flintstone, there's like river pebbles, there's pea gravel, there's a mix of everything really. Again, it just kind of kept it looking natural, and it added different colours and textures around the edge of the pond. Obviously the golden flintstone went nicely with the Cotswold stone. This is Rocky, our tortoise. She thought she would have a little look and inspection and see what was going on. And then the next bag of stones that we used were called Scottish tweed, which look absolutely amazing when they're wet, but when they're dry, they kind of faint. They're not as sort of saturated in colour as I thought they were going to be, which is a bit of a shame because these were the most expensive stones. So as you can see, that's them dry and this is them wet, so it's quite a difference, but they only look like that when it rains. So yeah, I lifted a lot of bags of stones and it absolutely killed me. This was hard work. This job's been going on over the past 2 weekends, so it's safe to say that I ache, my back hurts, my spine hurts, my muscles hurt, but I was determined to do it. So yeah, we added the stones around the edges, and that was just to kind of weigh down the membrane, and then it was time to go in with the bags of Scottish tweed stone. We kept having to go back to the shop to buy more rock because we just kept running out. It took more than we realised. And this is Rainbow Rock from B&Q. Now this was my favourite stone that we picked because this went really well with the Cotswold stone. So again, we just put that all around the edge of the pond, and then it was time to add some plants. Now to save money, you may remember a previous mini pond video that I did. Well, I just stole the plants out of that. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link in the description and you can see how I've like planted them and set them up and what I used and that kind of thing. So yeah, just to save some money because this was getting quite expensive, I just dismantled the mini pond and popped them in. I just balanced them on a brick because they sat a little bit deeper than I would have liked. So this is it with the plants in. I did have some wood in there, but I ended up removing it. But at this point we were sort of 75% there. I didn't really know where I was going after this. But then I thought I would add some more plants to the pond and also add some pebbles and things to the bottom of the pond, because when you looked in it was just blatantly unnatural. It was just a big black hole, so we added some pebbles to the bottom as well. And then we decided we wanted a path because it looked a little bit odd, so I won't bore you with how we built a path because it was pretty much the same. We just dug a trench, added pebbles and put some sideboards up, and we also added some solar lights around the pond and up the path as well, so that on a night it would be all lit up. And again, just added more gravel. I think we just kept realising that there was like gaps and you could see the membrane, so we just kept adding more and more. I still think even after this video I'm probably going to have to add more, but it's definitely getting there at this point, and there's still going to be more tweaks and little changes that I'm going to need to make, and I definitely want to add some more plants. But yeah, to say that we didn't really have a clue where we were going with it, and we didn't really have a plan, I'm really proud of it, to be fair. What was missing though was a lily. I just really want to see a frog on a lily pad. So I went and bought a lily, and I just picked up a few extra plants as well because I like the look of them. And we also, I don't know if this is allowed, but we went and pinched a few pebbles from the beach. I know in some places that's really frowned upon, so I'm sorry, I only took a few. And yeah, I added some more of them to the bottom of the pond as well, just to make it look a little bit more natural. And that is about where we are with it. I'm debating whether to add some fish. Now I'm not going to put goldfish in or anything like that because they get a lot bigger than people realise, but I was debating some Madaka rice fish. But let me know what you guys think. This is the pond at night, all lit up. So yeah, I really just can't wait to actually spend some weekends now chilling in the garden and enjoying it, and not lifting bags and digging holes and taking soil to the tip. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Maybe I've inspired you to build a pond. Thanks guys, I will see you on the next one.
Oh my god, the first bit of wildlife.